lumière du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
The U.S. will likely hit another striking measure of the pandemic by the time the sun sets today. 100,000 deaths from the coronavirus. It is a staggering number reached at a shocking pace, from one death to 100,000 in just 3 months. USA Today is out with a new cover featuring the stories of many of the victims. The special feature comes with an essay calling the virus the, quote, fastest killer in U.S. history. We are also long past the president's predictions. Of course, he first asserted it would all quickly go away. When it began to get bad, he estimated 50 to 70,000 deaths. And that was supposed to be good news when he said it. When we passed that mark, he predicted 80 or 90,000 deaths. Yet even yesterday, the president only wanted to proclaim what a good job he has done, tweeting out, quote, I just keep rolling along. If I hadn't done my job well, up to 2 million people would be dead, and that he had acted quickly and made the right decisions. Here's what he's saying now, that the U.S., under his leadership, is approaching 100,000 deaths.
We closed the border to China, meaning we put on the ban, people coming in from China. That was a very big moment. As Dr. Fauci said, we saved thousands and thousands of lives when we did that. And that's true, but I think we would have had anywhere from 10 to 20 or 25 times the number of deaths if we didn't act the way we did, and also if we didn't act swiftly. So we're very proud of our team and our task force, and Mike, great job.
It is staggering. First of all, you just have to say, Willie, when he talks about China, again, here's a guy who, under his presidency, allowed 430,000 people to come to the United States since the beginning of this pandemic. And 40,000 came in even after that toothless ban from China. At the same time, of course, he didn't implement a ban from Europe when his Health and Human Services team was begging him to do that because he didn't want to upset the stock market. That delay in over a month cost countless people's lives, healthcare officials suggest. But it's interesting. He's talking about what a great job they have done. Now that 100,000 Americans are dead, the fastest killer, as USA Today says, in the history of this country. Now we're getting to the point where almost twice as many people are going to die from this coronavirus than died in the Vietnam War. And yet, all he does, says the same thing over and over again. You know, back in January when he said it's just one person coming in from China, we've got it completely under control. We've done a good job. At the end of February, he said, it's 15 people coming in. Soon it will be down to zero. Zero. And he said, so we've done a really good job. In March, he talked about how they did a really good job. When again, Donald Trump missed all the signs that were given to him from the very beginning.
And also botched.
Given to him in January from warnings from the State Department. He was warned in January by the Pentagon, his own Pentagon. He was warned by Health and Human Services in January. He ignored those warnings. He was warned by the FDA. He ignored those warnings. He was warned by his intel agencies in daily briefings in January, early January. He ignored those warnings. He was warned. I mean, I could go down just so many cabinet agencies. He was warned at the end of January from his trade representative, Peter Navarro. And Navarro said 500,000 Americans, 500,000 souls could be lost. And that was about the same time that Donald Trump is saying we have everything under control. This is going well.
This is going to have a very good ending for us.
A very good ending. The same time, that Joe Biden was saying, at this same exact time at the end of January that Navarro was warning about 500,000 deaths, he said, Donald Trump has made it so we are not ready for the coming pandemic. He should let doctors and nurses run this. He should let them talk. But he never did. He just kept engaging in wishful thinking. And the consequences on the American people, and especially on senior citizens, Willie, the consequences on senior citizens, on veterans of World War II, veterans of Korea, veterans of Vietnam, veterans that gave their best for us. As the New York Times wrote over Memorial Day weekend, told stories of men who survived the worst of World War II, who died over the past 3 months. The fastest killer in U.S. history, a pandemic that the president told crowds and his TV propagandists told their audiences was being whipped up as a hoax by the media. Whipped up as a hoax by the media, said the President of the United States, when he was saying it's 15 people going to be zero, and now we're crossing, Willie, 100,000 Americans dead. And the sad thing is, we don't know where this is going to end because the president is lying to the American people when he says this is not going to come back in the fall. The president has been lying in the past about hydroxychloroquine. Even last week, I think it was, claiming that he was taking this drug that his own administration said was dangerous and caused deaths. And yet, he's pushing it. He was taking it, Willie, and now he is mocking reporters who are wearing masks. So sadly, we've crossed the 100,000 threshold, but even 100,000 Americans dead doesn't even wake this president up, Willie, to follow. All we've asked from the beginning, follow your doctor's advice. Follow your doctor's advice. That's all we've asked on this show. And he just can't do it.
It is Wednesday, the 27th of May of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Oh, there will be no priest. Unsmothered. Oh my, is that an allusion to violence? No, it's just to shut them up. Donald Trump is on the Twitter machine right now, threatening Twitter and Facebook with regulation because the shorter Trump is free speech for me, but not for thee. Trump is a madman. He wants to regulate and shut down the social media platforms because there's people on there that don't like him. Welcome to America, comrade. You know, you let a hostile foreign power install you in the presidency, and you have the gall to insist that democracy is cheating? Oh, yeah, of course you would. You were born on third base, and you still haven't been able to steal home. And you've tried so many times. You have. Oh, I should mention, folks, we got Gunner, the English Bulldog, here in the recording studio in the mothership at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Netroots Radio. Yeah, that's where we record the show. And old Gunner here is in the studio snoring away. So if you hear the repetitive, dulcet, I don't know, what is that? It's not a groan. Well, it is a snore. If you hear that, it's Gunner. He's a good dog. I actually posted a photograph of him and my camel crown toe tennis shoes. And, or one of them at least, because then that's how you get the camel crown toe. You see what I did there? Do ya? Anyway, I did post one on Twitter. It probably got lost in the morass, the maw of the Twitter machine. Especially since Trump he's going off this morning. Joe and Mika addressed it. And I apologize for having a bit more Joe and Mika here lately. But their recordings of their show come out quite regularly and pretty much right after that segment is done. Whereas some other news shows across the cable spectrum sometimes wait a day or more. And I had been setting the curated part of the show the night before, because that's what I do. But I've been holding off on the opening as we start off, and the recorded section from the news, and to the morning when we arise, so that it's fresh, indeed fresh. So we've been picking a bit of Joe and Mika because it's just been this morning. And now we are 100,000 plus dead and climbing. And Trump has called that a great success. 40 million unemployed. Oh, that's a great success. I guess if you've allowed a hostile foreign power to install you in the presidency with the intent purpose of knocking America down to size, like how about a GDP the equivalent of Italy? Because that's what Russia is right now. And they need some parity in the game. And we're the big boys on the block. So, 100,000 dead, 40 million employed. Sounds like you're doing a good job. If you're doing it for someone other than America. Well, we got that going for us, which is not very nice. Not at all. Trump continues to threaten California. 3 Republican groups are suing California because they want people to vote in California. California does. And the Republicans hate that. When people vote, they don't vote Republican. I mean, it's just so weird. It's almost like democracy is set up to prevent the kind of corrupt fascism that we're seeing right at this very moment. And they have pretty well entrenched themselves, but for some reason, democracy keeps fighting back. And I will not accept that democracy is set up by oligarchs to keep the rest of us human capital stock in the stockyards. I cannot accept that because, it may have turned out that way. But I think the great experiment's not done yet. Something got in the test tube, and there's really a weird bacteria growing. Not a virus, but a weird bacteria. And I got to tell you, sunlight is a caustic agent. It will get rid of that thing that is growing on the body politic of democracy, and we just have to get out our pitchforks and make sure nothing sticks, because that's what democracy is about. Redress of grievances, not the grievance daily of how Donald Trump feels that he is so aggrieved. What a whiner. Comes out today and says Obamagate is going to make Watergate look like small potatoes. Yeah, I think what Obamagate means is that you got caught taking help from a hostile foreign power to take down America. When people hear Obamagate, they're going to think of Donald Trump the traitor. Oh, you can't call him a traitor because we're not at war with Vlad. Vlad is at war with us. Okay? And I'm not just talking cyber war. I'm talking about actual mucking up our infrastructure. How about shutting down some electrical grids? How about messing around with some water municipality controls? What about that? That's a little bit more than just cyber warfare. Messing around with people's minds with trolls and bots. No, they declared war on us, and if you help them, I'm sorry, in the kingdom of this philosopher king, and I would never even call it a kingdom, but I would accept it being referred to as a realm. That is treason. If a hostile foreign power declares war on us and you help them, you are a traitor. Clear and simple. Donald Trump was impeached. He will always be impeached, and when this shakes out, he will be in jail. Along with his, his progeny, too. Maybe not Barron. I don't think Barron's done enough yet. We'll see. I got to tell you, though, I'm a little afraid of Barron. Barron looks like, the kid in all those weird 1970s monster movies where he turns out to be the real devil. Yeah, I don't know. I hate putting that on Barron because, it's not his fault yet. But his other three kids sure have grown up to be monsters. Weeds get very big and they start spreading around and weeding everything up, choking everything off, unless they get cut down to size on a regular basis. Like how democracy used to work with oversight. Yeah, let's fire every IG that's looking into crime and call that the corruption. Do you really think, Donald Trump, that we Americans are as stupid as the deplorables who voted for you? And am I calling the deplorables not really Americans? Maybe. Which brings me to another point. I keep getting accused on Facebook by Trump bros and maggots in general that I'm acting superior, and I keep reminding them it is not an act. Okay? This is America. You either work for America or you work against it. Colin Kaepernick is working for America by taking a knee to honor the dead killed by police. I guess when a cop takes a knee on a black guy's neck, choking him off, his cop friends will just tear gas any black person protesting that. And they did. But, like I said before, sunlight is the most caustic agent. We'll scour out that which is destroying the body politic of democracy. And it's up to us to take a knee, say a prayer, get up and get to work, and wrest our democracy back from these neo-fascists who have a pretty darn hard grip on it right now. Okay, what's on the rest of the curated part of the show? Here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Bistro Cafe. Oh, my God. Big Oil lost its appeal, and now the climate suits go to the California courts. Uh-oh. An acting inspector general who found severe hospital shortages during the pandemic is unfazed by Trump's constant withering criticism. I mean, she'd still be out of a job, but she doesn't care. She doesn't think about Trump when she's coming to these conclusions. She's doing her job. And if you ask the White House, Trump is the real victim of the false murder accusations he made. Yeah, he's always a victim. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the spread of coronavirus has caused a spike in corruption across Latin America. Yeah, one disease always brings on others. And Asia stocks are mixed on uncertainty over the mainland China-imposed Hong Kong security law. I guess mainland China doesn't really care about that mini constitution that Hong Kong signed, although so many years ago when Britain left. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of our chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is our Patreon link, and I know this is a constant plea daily when we have the morning show, but if you could please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. Your recurring contribution helps us pay our bills while Gunner the Bulldog keeps snoring in the background. And if you could afford the cost of an espresso-type coffee drink and send it to Gunner, send that money to Gunner through our Patreon link, we will make sure that we stretch those dollars in Gunner's behalf so that we can pay our bills, which we have been doing for over 9 years, going on 10 of continuous 24/7, 365 Resistance Radio, as the founders originally intended all those many years ago. So, keep Gunner snoring, buy him a coffee, and send the money our way, and we'll pay our bills with it. I don't know. It just came to me. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and ably, and we thank him for doing it. I, of course, take care of Justice Putnam as it is, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Coz about 10 minutes before showtime, and then put that out on social media, in which Twitter is one of the platforms while we still have it. You know, Twitter could be seized under a martial law declaration. That's what Trump is threatening. Sounds presidential to me. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, iTunes, etc., 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 etc. Okay, Gunner's snoring. I guess he's not bothered by this, whatever it is that we're doing here in the mothership, but that's what we do. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by Brian Melly. Big Oil lost a pair of court battles yesterday, Tuesday, that could lead to trials in lawsuits by California cities and counties seeking damages for the impact of climate change. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rejected arguments by energy companies and ruled state courts are the proper forum for lawsuits alleging producers promoted petroleum as environmentally responsible when they knew it was contributing to drought, wildfires, and sea level rise associated with global warming. The lawsuits claim Chevron, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, BP, Royal Dutch Shell, and other companies created a public nuisance and should pay for damage from climate change and help build seawalls or other infrastructure to protect against future impact construction that could cost tens of billions of dollars. Well, I don't know. Are they penny pinchers? They're willing to just let all that oil leak into the Gulf of the Gulf there down there in Mexico for what now, a decade? All that money lost. The ruling overturned a decision by one federal judge who had tossed out lawsuits brought by the cities of San Francisco and Oakland. While the rulings were victories for the coastal counties and cities, all in the San Francisco Bay Area, except for the tiny city of Imperial Beach in San Diego County, and cheered by environmental groups, it could take years before they ever get to a jury if they make it that far. The 3-0 rulings are expected to meet continued challenges that include a review by a larger Ninth Circuit panel, oh, you mean en banc, and eventually review by the U.S. John Balls and Strikes Roberts, I never call a foul ball on the home team, Roberts, Supreme Court. An appeals court in Virginia ruled that a similar case brought by Baltimore belonged in Maryland courts, and lower federal courts in other cities have issued similar decisions. Singer of the American Independent brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany struggled to defend Trump's tweets baselessly accusing Joe Scarborough of murder, claiming instead that it is Trump who has been wronged by Scarborough and his wife. Fellow MSNBC host Mika Brzezinski. McEnany's comments came during a White House news conference on Tuesday yesterday, after she was asked why Trump won't stop tweeting about the death of Lori Klasutis, who worked as an aide to Scarborough when he served as a member of Congress from Florida. An autopsy report at the time found she died from a fall due to an undiagnosed heart issue. Klasutis' widower pleaded with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey in a letter to take the tweets down, saying they helped spread bile and misinformation and were disparaging the memory of his wife. I don't know if he's seen the letter, but I do know that our hearts are with Lori's family at this time, McEnany said. Jeez. Reporters asked why Trump would make a nuts allegation accusing somebody of possible murder. McEnany pivoted to blame the allegations on Scarborough himself, claiming that Scarborough joked about killing an intern in 2003 during an appearance on Don Imus's radio show. She also said Scarborough and Brzezinski had attacked Trump and his family, so Trump had to lie about the murder allegations. He had to. He was so wrong. No. I would note that the president said this morning that this is not an original Trump thought, McEnany said. Well, has Trump ever had an original thought? McEnany added this morning, Mika accused the president of being responsible for 100,000 deaths in this country. That's incredibly irresponsible. They've dragged his family through the mud. They've made false accusations that I won't go through because we'll remind everybody about what a mobster he is. That I will not say from this podium against the president of the United States. Well, the nation's response to the coronavirus, which has killed over 100,000 in the United States as of this morning, is overseen by Trump, and he has refused to take any responsibility for the death toll. And it's not the first time Trump has pushed a baseless conspiracy theory, having promoted them against Barack Obama. You know, where's your birth certificate, black man? Hillary Clinton, she murdered Vince Foster. And others he views as enemies, indeed. Nor is it the first time he has caused pain to the family of someone who has died. He attacked Khizr Khan, the father of the soldier who died serving in Iraq, because Khan criticized him. And he continues to attack the late Senator John McCain, another perceived enemy, a year after McCain's death. And I should add that even Seth Rich is not allowed to rest in peace. Well, why don't we now get to our break, because Gunnar the English Bulldog is snoring away. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, a snapshot of lost love and regret. From up-and-coming director Stella Maggie, who gave us The Weekend and Everything, we now have The Photograph, a well-told story in 3 timelines featuring a veritable who's who of 2020 African-American cinema. The movie's female lead is Insecure's Issa Rae, as May, a New York gallery curator whose mother, a famous photographer named Christina, has recently passed away. Journalist Michael, the ubiquitous Lakeith Stanfield, begins a relationship with her as he's working on an article about a Louisiana fisherman named Isaac, who turns out to be Christina's former lover. The film is a backstory to an old photograph found, one of a young woman at a cheap folding card table in a nondescript room, authentic as it is spare. We find out as we go along that the picture was taken at a time of momentous, life-changing decision. May and Michael's relationship in the present seems like pure chemistry, set amidst personal and professional success. It's the romantic part of the term romantic drama. The drama part is in the flashbacks to 2 distinct time periods in the 80s, and which comprise a good portion of the film. We see a young Christina leave Isaac on a Greyhound bus for New York to pursue her career. We also see her visit an upstairs jazz club in New Orleans with Isaac, one that decades later is also visited by May and Michael. The point is made, the telegraphy can be forgiven. The set design and cinematography should be great for a movie entitled The Photograph, and they are. If anything, this one will leave you wanting more of the story and of these characters, leaving one to wonder if a miniseries wouldn't have been a better vehicle for this story. But if enough people see this one, maybe we'll get a sequel. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Jason Goldman. More than 200 million people get malaria each year, and about 500,000 die, mostly in Africa, many of them children. And those staggering numbers are an improvement. Malaria deaths have been cut in half since 2000. In many places, a remarkably simple tool has led the fight. Bed nets, treated with a mild insecticide that stop mosquitoes from biting people in their sleep. Both people and mosquitoes are pawns in the malaria transmission cycle. If an infected person gets bitten by a mosquito, the parasite gets picked up along with the blood meal. That mosquito can then transfer the parasite to the next person it bites. Bed nets help stop mosquitoes from easy attacks on motionless sleepers. But now, some mosquitoes seem to be giving up the night shift.
Malaria mosquitoes in Africa tend to shift their biting behavior.
Entomologist Uno Sa from Penn State University's Center for Infectious Disease Dynamics.
Normally, they tend to bite people during the night, but because of extensive use of bed nets, these mosquitoes started biting in the early evening or in the mornings.
The assumption is that the bed nets are weeding out the nighttime biters, while not affecting the mosquitoes that prefer feeding at other times. So those mosquitoes are thriving. Sa and his team wanted to know whether the observed change in biting time had any impact on malaria transmission. Back in the lab, they presented Anopheles mosquitoes with the opportunity to feed on blood at 6 p.m., at midnight, and at 6 a.m. When the laboratory was kept at an even 80 degrees Fahrenheit, evening and morning biters were no more or less likely to become infectious than the midnight biters. But in the real world of the warm and humid tropics, nighttime is slightly cooler than the daytime. And when the researchers introduced that temperature variation, the evening biters were a lot more likely to have potent malaria parasites. The results are in the journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution.
Not all mosquito bites are equal. So mosquitoes biting in the evening can have highest transmission potential comparing to mosquitoes biting at midnight or in the morning.
Suh thinks that the difference in the likelihood of mosquitoes becoming infectious has to do with the way that the malaria parasite matures. The parasites have a tougher time developing when mosquitoes are too warm. But if a mosquito picks up the parasites from blood around dusk, those parasites have more hours of cooler nighttime temps to complete their development. Next, Suh wants to conduct a similar study of wild mosquitoes and wild malaria parasites in Africa to see if the results from his lab mosquitoes hold up. Either way, bed nets will remain an important tool, but understanding the enemy's behavior is always crucial information in any battle. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Jason Goldman.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. Occasional aches and pains are an expected part of life, but for many people, pain is a constant companion. Dr. Chad Helmick is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. He's joining us today to discuss ways to manage chronic pain. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thank you.
Chad, how many people in the U.S. suffer from chronic pain?
In 2016, 50 million adults had chronic pain, which is pain on most or every day in the past 6 months. More interesting, though, is that 20 million people have high-impact chronic pain, which is chronic pain that also limits their work or life activities on most or every day in the past 6 months. This is a problem because chronic pain is associated not only with symptoms, but with anxiety and depression, reduced quality of life, and the risk of opioid problems.
What are the most common causes of chronic pain?
The most common causes generally relate to bones and joints, like low back pain and arthritis, but there are many other causes: headaches, sickle cell disease, fibromyalgia, surgery and injuries, and many, many others.
Is chronic pain more common in any particular group of people?
Yes, it occurs at all ages, but it's more common in older middle-aged adults and in the oldest 85 and older. It's also more common in women, poor people, and those who live in rural areas.
How is chronic pain treated?
Well, the first thing to do is to get a diagnosis, which can help guide treatment. But the thinking about chronic pain now is that it becomes a chronic disease by itself, regardless of the cause, and that can cause significant problems. The real goal in management is to have a manageable level of pain, not to get rid of all pain. There's several steps that can be taken, and these are sometimes difficult to do because of barriers to access. But it makes sense to do the simplest and safest things first. And these are non-drug steps. Things like physical activity. Walking is perfectly good to help reduce pain. Also, self-management education can give you some confidence in managing chronic pain when you're on your own. There's also physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychological therapy, better sleep, which usually means less alcohol, and seeing a chiropractor or getting biofeedback and massage. If that's not enough, non-opioid drugs like Tylenol or Motrin and Advil or naproxen or Aleve can help. If those don't work, then it's time to consider something stronger. Sometimes that's opioids, but there's not great evidence that opioids are good for long-term pain in most people.
Do you have any advice for people suffering from chronic pain?
Well, it's important to work with a variety of providers who are working together to help you. The goal, again, is manageable pain so you can live a productive life. This can include physical therapy, most people can walk, to treat any underlying depression or anxiety, and to avoid further injuries. Finally, the National Pain Strategy is laying out a strategic roadmap to improve pain management system in this country.
Where can listeners get more information about managing chronic pain?
Listeners can go to the NIH website, nih.gov, and type in National Pain Strategy.
Thanks, Chad. I've been talking today with Dr. Chad Helmick about ways to manage chronic pain. If you're experiencing daily pain, talk with your healthcare provider to ensure you have the correct diagnosis and know how to manage your condition. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
At an alarming rate, a new death penalty is being carried out in prisons and jails in the United States. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. More than 100 inmates have died recently from COVID-19 in America's prisons and jails, a number that in all likelihood is about to skyrocket. An ACLU report indicates that COVID-19 deaths in prisons and jails could well double the total number of deaths from the virus in the United States. Because in prison, where social distancing is impossible, COVID-19 spreads like wildfire. The solution? The number of people who are locked up needs to be dramatically reduced. And it can be. A 2016 study from the Brennan Center for Justice found there was no compelling public safety reason to incarcerate 576,000 of the people locked up in federal and state prisons. For example, elderly people, when released from prison, have an extraordinarily low rate of recidivism for any crime. And in federal prison today, there are more than 10,000 inmates, 60 or older, most of whom have been locked up for a really long time. Those people were not sentenced to death for their crimes. Many can and should be released before COVID-19 kills them. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. Can you imagine if the earth beneath your hometown caught fire and kept on burning for more than half a century? That is what happened in Centralia, Pennsylvania. And on this day in labor history, the year was 1962. Centralia was a mining town with 2,700 residents built above a rich vein of anthracite coal. It's not entirely certain what started the fire. The town had used an abandoned mine as a landfill. Each spring, they would burn the trash collected during the year. It's thought that the trash burning was not fully extinguished and spread to the mine. Once they realized the extent of the problem, town and state officials tried to stop the fire, but they could not. In 1979, the owner of a gas station in town checked his underground tanks. He found the gasoline had heated up to 172 degrees Fahrenheit. By the early 1980s, sinkholes began to open up around the town. One 12-year-old boy almost perished in one of the sinkholes. 7th grader Tom Dombowski was crossing his neighbor's yard when the earth beneath him opened up. He fell 8 feet. Todd was rescued by his cousin before he plummeted further into the 150-foot hole. In 1984, the government began relocating town members to other locations. 8 residents fought the relocation and won permission to stay on the burning landscape until they passed away. Today, Centralia burns underground and is but a pile of rubble and abandoned houses on the surface. The asphalt of the town's roads have deep gashes and white smoke rising from the cracks. It's estimated the former mining town may continue to burn for another 2 centuries.
Some refuse to leave a place they found.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Sweet home for walls of memories. I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
On Wednesday morning, the death toll in the United States alone from COVID-19 passed 100,000. Lester Holt of NBC News marked the milestone Tuesday night.
It's like we're living the stages of grief all at once. Denial, anger,
bargaining, despair, and perhaps even acceptance. Is it possible we've come to accept 100,000 deaths, or are we simply unable to process it? This, of course, is not over, but we choose milestones to take stock, to remember, to share our sorrows until, as a country, we can confront the depths of our collective pain face to face.
Another sobering thought, the true death toll is almost certainly higher, as Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts have said, as many people who died at home were not counted, and the White House is doing all they can to keep the numbers down. As parts of Europe and Asia look toward recovery, Latin America has now become the center of the global coronavirus outbreak. The director of the Pan American Health Organization says the region has surpassed Europe and the U.S. in daily infection numbers. Mexico saw its largest single-day increases in both newly confirmed cases and reported deaths on Tuesday. The same day, Peru reported 5,000 new cases. And Brazil continues to suffer, with the daily death tolls this week surpassing those in the U.S. In other news, the Minneapolis Police Department has fired 4 officers over the death of a black man, George Floyd, after the officers restrained him, causing his death. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Freed tweeted, "This is the right call." Thousands of people gathered outside a police station to protest after video surfaced on social media showing one of the officers with his knees on the back of Floyd's neck as he's handcuffed on the ground and crying, "Please, I can't breathe," multiple times before he appeared to go limp. So the cops were fired. That's a good thing. My next question is, when will these 4 police officers be arrested and charged with murder? Investment management firm Franklin Templeton on Tuesday fired an employee, Amy Cooper, who, well, she's the woman who was exposed in a viral video calling police on an African-American bird watcher in Central Park after he asked her to put her dog on a leash. Ms. Cooper apologized to the man, Christian Cooper, no relation, but her employer said it decided after a review to fire her, effective immediately. Tweeting, quote, "We do not tolerate racism of any kind at Franklin Templeton." Good to hear. The Justice Department is reportedly telling lawyers for Republican Senators Kelly Loeffler of Georgia and James Inhofe of Oklahoma and Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein of California that it's closing investigations into stock trades they made shortly before the market fell when the coronavirus crisis hit. An inquiry into trades then Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Richard Burr made after getting closed-door briefings is ongoing, according to the Wall Street Journal, citing people familiar with the matter. The FBI spent 2 months looking into the trades made by the lawmakers, their spouses, or their investment advisors. All of the senators denied they did anything wrong. Feinstein, Loeffler, and Inhofe saying that their advisors made the trades without their prior knowledge. Sure. Donald Trump is on another rage tweet tantrum. I guess we can call it a tantrum. Anyway, this time it's against Twitter, who said weeks ago they'd begin flagging tweets with questionable contents. Well, they finally slapped fact-check labels on 2 of Trump's tweets Tuesday for the very first time. One of them falsely suggested that mail-in ballots were fraudulent, and the other referred people to news articles about Trump's unsubstantiated claim. A Twitter spokesperson said the company had labeled the tweets, quote, "to provide additional context around mail-in ballots." Trump accused Twitter of, quote, "stifling free speech," and then he suggested he'd close them down. Way to stand up for the First Amendment. Yeah. But Twitter refuses to do anything but apologize about Trump's latest Twitter attacks on Joe Scarborough, reigniting an old story about the death of an intern in the then congressman's office in 2001. Trump has repeatedly suggested without evidence that she was murdered. Timothy Klausutis, the former staffer's widower, pleaded with Trump to stop pushing the baseless allegation, saying in a letter that Trump, quote, "has taken the memory of my dead wife and perverted it for perceived political gain." When asked about the letter on Tuesday, Trump still insisted the matter was, quote, "suspicious."
You're suggesting that Joe Scarborough was responsible?
Yeah, a lot of people suggest that. And hopefully someday people are going to find out. Certainly a very suspicious situation, very sad and very suspicious. No, it's a very suspicious thing, and I hope somebody gets to the bottom of it. It'll be a very good thing. As you know, there's no statute of limitations, so it would be a very good thing to do.
Let me make this clear. That case was closed years ago, so there's nothing to get to the bottom of. Lori Klasoutis died from an arrhythmia that caused her to pass out and hit her head on a table. End of story. Wednesday's a big day for space flight, perhaps. It depends on the weather. But SpaceX is planning an attempt to launch 2 NASA astronauts to the International Space Station from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on Wednesday afternoon. If the launch of the Crew Dragon spacecraft happens without a delay, it will mark the first time in history that a commercial aerospace company has carried humans into Earth's orbit.
I got good news.
And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently... Oh, I don't have that pane open. Open up, pane. Oh, it is currently 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Fair conditions, they say. A bit warmer than yesterday. We'll still be in the upper 80s to low 90s. Maybe in some areas outlying from where the mothership is, it might get a bit higher into the mid 90s. But we'll see how that goes. Warm enough. Let's see. Plenty of sunshine. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight. Lows in the mid to low 60s. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then sunshine tomorrow with some clouds. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Highs in the low 90s. Upper 80s to low 90s, maybe hotter in other areas. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County of Southern Oregon stands at 60. I should mention, I looked a little bit deeper into the data. 47 of those had recovered, and we had no new cases of infections up to 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, it stood at 47 and had stood at 47 until Thursday of last week, which was about 2 weeks when people on their own decided Kate Brown, our Democratic governor of Oregon, is a jackboot liberal, and how dare she tell us to stay home during a pandemic. And now we've spiked in confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County from 47 to 60 today. So, yeah. Don't worry about the numbers. They're so small. Grass pollen is considered very high just right outside the window of the mothership. Sneeze cut you. The air quality index is supposedly in the good range at 39 parts per million. Pretty high up there in that air quality index. And that daytime UV index is very high at 9. Take care. SP 30 or more. Slather it on, please. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.03 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 72%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased, and these people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world while Gunner, the English bulldog, snores away. Thank you, Gunner. London is 75 and partly cloudy with a lot of trouble because their government officials decided to break pandemic protocols and travel around the country. Auto trip. Paris is 79 and sunny with a collapsed economy because of coronavirus. Rome is 77 and partly cloudy. They had a flattening of the curve, but now they have a spike of coronavirus. Kyiv is 62 and fair, and they still have coronavirus. Kabul is 75 and fair with coronavirus. Hong Kong is 78 and partly cloudy with quite a bit of coronavirus still. Tokyo is 70 and partly cloudy, and they'd like to open up parts of their economy. We'll see if they can. Sydney, Australia is 57 and fair, and they still are not going to open up their borders because of coronavirus. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and sunny and under, I think, phase 2 now of reopening from the coronavirus. And New York is 72 degrees Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, trying to reopen from coronavirus. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Joshua Goodman of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Even in a pandemic, there is no slowdown for swindlers in Latin America. From Argentina to Panama, a number of officials have been forced to resign as reports of fraudulent purchases of ventilators, masks, and other medical supplies pile up. The thefts are driven by price gouging from manufacturers and profiteering by politically connected middlemen who see the crisis as an opportunity for graft. Wow, we have one of those in the Oval Office right now. Whenever there's a dire situation, spending rules are relaxed and there's always someone around looking to take advantage to make a profit, said Jose Ugaz, a former Peruvian prosecutor who jailed former President Alberto Fujimori and was chairman of the Transparency International from 2014 to 2017. Coronavirus clusters are still spreading in Latin America, fueling a spike in deaths, swamping already precarious hospitals, and threatening to ravage slumping economy. Against this backdrop, reports of fraud have proliferated.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Joe McDonald, also of the Associated Press, brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Major Asian stock markets were mixed today as U.S.-Chinese tension over Hong Kong competed with optimism about recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. Benchmarks in Shanghai and Hong Kong retreated after the White House said a proposed national security law might jeopardize the Chinese territory's status as a global financial center. Well, look into that article a little bit more. The former Hong Kong governor doesn't like it. The security law, by the way. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.